Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of the MCR, Mac and me. My name's TJ, and in this segment, we'd like to talk about a certain demographic group of immigrants that are not politically correct. Um, I'm referencing the 50 something, and I don't know if it's 56 or 59, but it's 50 something white South African farmers. Uh, They're of Boer descent, and I'll describe that term here in a second. But white South African farmers basically fleeing for their life, and well, it's the political issue of the day, we'll say now. In reference to them being of Boer descent, they're modern day. They're kind of referred to modern in the modern day as Afrikaners, if I'm saying it right. I think I've also heard it Afrikaner or something, but Afrikaner.
Yeah.
Uh, but Boer descendants, it's descendants of Dutch and German. And in my research, it even said some French. But you could say uh, Western European or Dutch, and from what I heard, it was primarily Dutch in the past. Uh, and for the record, these Boers, historically speaking, they weren't exactly friends of the British either. I say that if you studied history, you would be aware of back when the British had it out with the Zulus. Once they got the Zulus under control, well, then they had to get the Boers under control, leading to the Boer Wars. And the Boers actually put up a pretty good fight, but eventually the British had numeric superiority, and eventually the British did get the upper hand in what's referred to historically as the Boer Wars. Okay.
Well, you mentioned something that instantly pops into my mind. The very root cause of this problem was the British getting people
Yeah,
under
yeah,
their control.
exactly. And the Dutch just wanted to live, and and the Dutch moved into this area back in the 17th and 18th centuries. So these, as we come full circle back to today, the white Afrikaners, the South African farmers, and it's primarily the South African farmers, okay? Uh, their ancestry, they a lot of them have these farms that have been in the family for like 1, 2, 300 years. And the South African government, by, as they say, fiat, written into South African law, uh, they're allowed to just willy-nilly take the land from them in an effort to rectify past sins, and thus, socialism, communism, distribute it out to well, their people, will say, you know. Uh, this has led to some fierce hostility with these white African farmers who some are being murdered. I say some. I'd say it's more than just some.
I
Uh,
believe the number I heard was around 1,000.
yeah. So I mean, these people have a legitimate, and the reason why I'm going into all of this is these people have a legitimate reason to seek asylum here in the U.S. And that's where I'm getting to with all this historical blah blah blah. There is a reason for them to come to this country. Okay. They're you know and a little side note, Mac and I worked with a young man whose family fled South Africa back in the 1980s. And even back then, the way this young man spoke, he basically said his parents saw the writing on the wall almost 40 years ago and said, "Man, we're getting out of here," you know? Uh, But and he blonde hair, blue eyes, and we used to joke around and say he was the true African American on our staff. But
Others resented the fact that we point out that he was an African American
yeah,
in the literal sense.
leading to the well, you know what we mean type of
Yeah,
statement.
right.
But anyways, in saying all this, uh, their immigration's been expedited, and the liberals are in meltdown over this.
Well,
And it
they should just stay there and take their just desserts, according to the Democrats.
that is exactly what's being said. And then you've got this Democrat operative from the Biden regime. And let me get her name here. Ashley, hold on here a minute because I do have it written down. I just need to find it in my notes. Ashley, sorry, Ashley Allison. Ashley Allison has as much said they need to go back where they came from. Of course, this was on a CNN panel with Scott Jennings, who was calling her out and saying, okay, where do they come from? And she didn't even know where they came from. She says, the Netherlands, Germany, wherever their family came
Well,
from.
so when you get some nutter KKK type white supremacist who says blacks ought to come back from where they came from, whether they were brought here of their free will or not, but they just need to go back where they came. Does she agree with that?
Well,
So,
I don't know.
3 or 400 years of living on this continent, you're supposed to just go back where you came from, which, by the way, is here.
They have kind of tacitly, if you understand the definition behind that word,
I do.
said they need to stay there and die.
Yeah, that's pretty much was
I
my
mean, in,
impression.
in essence, that's the message they are sending is they need to just stay there and get killed. It doesn't matter that you say 1,000. I knew it was happening. I didn't even have a ballpark figure, but they just need to stay
Well,
there and die.
it's a genocide, and I guess some genocides are okay or justified in the minds of these simpletons, while others are terrible.
And I've been wanting to talk about this for a few weeks, but normally there'd be something else that gets moved to the front burner. But just last week, the president of South Africa, a Cyril Ramaphosa, I think is how his name is pronounced.
Yeah.
Okay, he came to the White House. I suspect he was looking for a handout, not
Well,
realizing
you
he,
know
he
what? Here's the thing. Everybody that comes to the Oval House office has got their hat in hand wanting a handout.
oh yeah,
Everybody.
well, he didn't expect to be dealing with Donald Trump, you know, and the Donald, President Trump, true to his nature, is kind of calling the guy out,
Yeah.
and the guy denies it. Oh no, 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 no. And Trump's saying, you're letting these white South Africans be murdered. You're taking their land, and this South African president is going, no, 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 no. And at which point President Trump goes, dim the lights. Let's play this video, and commences to show a video that disputes South African president's denials. You know, uh, I've been rambling, Max. So any thoughts or
That
caught
the
you off guard?
Democrats and the media uh, have is that you have a white genocide going on, which they're fine with, but at the end of the day, you have to say black people have done something wrong, you
Hmm.
know, and we can't say that because
Oh
we all
no.
know that every person of color on the earth is a person of great virtue and purity. They never do anything wrong. Only white people do things wrong. And hey, we're talking about human beings here, and I'm sure in a twisted way, you could certainly make an argument for some people thinking they're getting revenge on what happened to them because
Yeah.
they talk about oppression in this country. Those people were oppressed in the true sense of the word, and I could see how they'd want to kick somebody's ass for it. But it's been over for a while, and I think this is more about an eye for an eye, and that's not a good way to live if you want to live in peace on this earth.
Well, one of the things that these South African immigrants did that really irritated the liberals, I, as soon as I saw it, I started chuckling. There's video of them as they're entering the country waving U.S. flags.
Well, that's the first thing. They're not America
You
haters.
know, and and
They might be Republicans. That's the worst. That's the big problem.
and the thing of it is they're not waving the Mexican flag, they're not waving the ISIS flag, they were waving the American flag, and the liberals just that was too much for the liberals to bear, the Democrats especially.
Well, they
You
wouldn't
know,
have a
like
problem. They don't have a problem with refugees from Gaza who are chanting "Death to America."
yeah, yeah,
Those people,
really.
they want them here. I
Uh,
mean, just do the math for yourself. Figure it out. I mean, it's not that complicated. Connect the dots. The people who hate this country, that's who they want here because they hate this country.
one
They want
last,
to end
one
it.
last, one last thing I have. After the White House encounter with the South African president, uh, and the liberals took President Trump to task for ambushing the South African president, and then they said, and he ambushed Zelensky. So now different dignitaries from across the country, from across the world, internationally, they're going to be hesitant to come to the White House out of fear of being ambushed by
You know
President
what?
Trump.
Again, coming here with his hand out, give me some money. They can stay home and they can not get our money. And I'm perfectly fine with that. And you know what? Those Democrats can kiss my white derriere.
All right, there you go. Well, the thing of it is, I guess, if you're going to conduct yourself uncivilly, expect to be called out by this president for
Well, their
sure.
version of an ambush is the fact that Trump's prepared.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
prepared. He's loaded for bear. He's ready to go. These people think they're just going to come here like they have been for the last 4 years and roll in a wheelbarrow and have it filled up with trillions of dollars, and then they leave. Ha ha ha.
You know what? And that's exactly how it's always been up until now,
Yep.
for sure, for sure. Well, that's all I got. I'm glad that these South Africans and you know what? I want to throw this in too. You can say the same thing about the Cuban refugees too, because if you recall, the liberals were not necessarily in favor of Cuban immigration either.
No,
You
because
know,
they
so
tend to vote conservative, and that's not, and
you know,
they don't hate the United States. Those are the two things that come into play every time.
and so I'm inclined to include Cuban refugees fleeing communism from in Cuba. Okay, it's the same thing. People want freedom. You know what? They want freedom. They want to be able to live their life. And well, with the Democrats and the liberals, if you don't toe the line they draw, you
Well,
know,
they're just like the British oppressors. They want control, as I
yeah.
said early in the video.
So and the reason why I threw the Cubans in with it, this isn't a white and brown or a white and black or whatever issue. It's people wanting freedom to live their lives issue, you know, whether they be from South Africa or whether they be from Cuba. And it's always bothered me the way they've treated people fleeing Cuba. Okay. So I'll just end with that. So that's all I got. Any final thoughts, Mac? Call this one a wrap. Thanks, everyone. For those who are still watching, we're doing this on Zoom and that whole new adventure now that Microsoft's got Skype shut down. So hopefully we did all right, and we'll catch you in the next segment. As always, be safe, watch your six, and don't tread on me.